Good morning, everyone. We have Nick online. Bill and Ira and myself here in the room and a few people attending in the room. We'll begin. There are no attendees. We'll follow the agenda. Approval of minutes. So we have minutes from Ira.
One side of the sheet here.
Oh, look at how official it is. Are there any comments on the minutes?
No comments.
Okay, we will consider those approved then.
We
Moving
have to
on,
do that. We have to vote.
must we vote?
On that, yeah.
Okay, would you make
I
a,
move for approval.
I second.
all right,
Aye.
Aye.
Nick?
Aye.
Approve also, so we have 4 approvals on the minutes. We'll move on to continuing business, so. T-box movement and paving. I think these are projects that are in the works, but I don't think are yet identified with start dates. Anyone in the audience have any information about the start dates?
The chief,
Oh, they have. Maybe you could come up closer so that we can make sure that you're
I
heard.
knew that was.
Thank you, John.
John Allen, New Golf.
Not allowed to sit anymore, John. Standing by.
Yeah, the T construction project, been activated, gentlemen sent, Bill's rate from, Bill's rate construction, they began doing site work. Started last week, bringing material, bringing in equipment, so starting to get underway.
That's great.
And there's asphalt paving, I think that's what the town said.
Right, okay, right. I have not heard anything about when the paving will occur yet, so. Any discussion about T-box movement or paving? Moving on, is there anything new that we should discuss about course signage?
Yes. Let's see, I did a couple of mock-ups of what the starting points. A sign under the tree just to the left as you're driving in the parking lot. I have them and I can show them if you want to go that far. And then another one to go on the wall, John, you saw that as well. Showed them to John, bounced them off, Ira, put some text there. And I've been back and forth a couple times with the guy who makes the signs for the town. Because I think, you know, we debate this. I think we want them to look consistent with the other signage in town. Don't have a price on that yet, but he will come back to me. He will also suggest updates or improvements to the language. Rather than put too much information on the sign, I'm suggesting we have a QR code, lower right, scan the code to find out hours and grade schedule, etc., rather than having to walk in. A couple of arrows, one for the ramp, and the other for going up the stairs to get into the pro shop. Since 1896, at the top of it, backed away from the idea of having an antique picture in the background because there is no such thing based on it. So anyway, that's a work in progress, but we're a lot further along than the last time. One other thing about signs, we were talking about overflow parking, lighting thing, and I suggested that I would talk to the school, and I have. We've been back and forth a couple times, and they're very good about getting back to me. They would prefer that we not do that because they have sporadic summer programs going on. So they don't want to put a stake in the ground saying, yes, you can have overflow parking there. Now, if we know we're going to have a big event, we'd be very happy to work with us on that because if it's scheduled for a day when there is nothing going on in the playground, well, then they'd be fine doing that. I walked over yesterday, took a few measurements for the sign, and as I was coming back down on what's presently the Cinder Road, I noticed that there, if we pave it, there's easily going to be space to accommodate 10 cars on the grass, sort of pointing at the school. So in my mind, there's an awful lot more potential parking available than I had thought. So I'll come back to you when I have pricing next time and we'll get an idea and then we can take it from there.
Okay. Any questions or comments on signs?
The signing subcommittee is really exhausted after all this, and take it easy on this.
Really a great effort, so. Okay, well, I think that'll be a nice improvement, so, course, moving on then, course marketing, so we have a draft article for My Southborough. Any comments on the draft article? Only comment is I think maybe it should be the Southborough Golf Club anticipates, that's my only comment, but
Happily add in those three letters.
But otherwise, it seems like very good things are called out here, so. I guess if with maybe that one slight modification, then Ira, you could submit it to myself, or I don't know how that works, but. Get them to post
Neither
it.
do I, but we'll find out. Two comments from me. Number one, I just checked with John to make sure I got the management company's name right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna add a corporation to that phrase, to make sure that it's accurate. And two, just to note, I was going to reach out to Lynn McKay to see if she wanted a sentence included to promote the Women's League, but I thought, A, I couldn't figure out what her email was. And B, I know that she submits an article to My Southborough anyway. So
Yeah, I think it might be
didn't- I
good
didn't
if
think there
we-
was any loss in not doing that.
Yeah, I think it might be good just to have yet another article on My Southborough for her to, submit yet another one. And maybe, I don't know who's in charge of the men's league. There must be someone who's in charge of the men's league. Maybe we could get them to do the same thing.
It's James. Yeah. Oh, no, we actually just, it was Bob Murphy who has just notified us that he's not back this year. So we are now looking for another person.
Another person to
Yeah,
coordinate the
he's no
men's league.
longer, he's been coordinator for the past 16 years. Since we've been here.
So how many guys show up typically for the men's league?
Men's league, probably close to 12 to 16.
Oh, so a pretty good turnout though.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if you could let us know when, if and when someone steps up to be the leader of that.
You mentioned in your article that the leagues are open, size, opportunity for these, please inquire. That's what we put on our website. Just make something doing that to.
I mentioned league play. I didn't get into any.
Just might be as, worth it, as far as, leagues, we don't typically do big outings because they're limited cots that we have, and usually do small ones,
Yeah,
but just can't hurt to mention something like that, just to inquire. And
Now, plant the seed, more information will be forthcoming.
okay. This article says mid-March. I don't suppose you have a date in mind?
probably now the course is going to tell us, that was a wish list when it was nice and dry.
So maybe it won't be mid-March at this point, since it's March
I would
2nd.
say sometime after mid-March, the course usually tells us, and hopefully prior to April 1st.
Maybe it's late March now then.
Yeah, late March is probably good, general.
Yeah,
I don't like pegging, peg it down, but
yeah, yeah,
No, it's fine.
it's like this, people aren't really thinking about it, they're like anything anymore for
right.
Got it.
Okay. Any other discussion about the article, the marketing?
Should I sign up the golf club committee? Does that violate any?
I think that sounds like a great idea.
How would we get a reading on that? I know. You're gonna talk anyway. Should you sit up here?
I'm over here, like, it's good to get out of it.
You can't hide from us.
What was the question I can hear back?
I'm about to submit a little marketing blurb to myself, or just announcing the beginning of the season,
Yes,
and I just thought to ask, might I sign it on behalf of the golf club?
yes, that
committee?
was actually literally something I was underlining in my notes. Perfectly okay, because it's an advertisement. Where you get in trouble on the open meeting law is if you had a disagreement and you post an opinion and you reply back to it, now you have something different. That actually happened with a committee a couple of years ago. Perfectly okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Your time here has been well spent.
It's just getting started.
Excellent, that's right. Don't sit down. Okay, well, if you could arrange that, then
I will,
that
I
would be
will
great.
get that in, today's Thursday, I'll get it in later than Monday.
Okay. Moving on then, so irrigation, so no news on irrigation. I did get an email message from Sam Stiver. Sam was not able to attend today. You know, he's been a great supporter of this committee. He says he knows that the discussion is continuing between the town and the Community Preservation Committee. I will reach out to the head of that committee over the next 2 weeks, just to make sure that they're continuing to think about this, but everyone seems optimistic that we're going to sort this out. Won't be this year, but I think we're continuing to be on the path of having something on a town meeting warrant for approval at the end of this year. So we'll keep talking about irrigation. Are there other updates that we'd like to discuss as a committee?
We have Jim.
Yep, so we can,
And I'm done with my model.
okay,
Which I find interesting. I don't know how to share that with you guys unless we can plug me in. I can just talk to it.
why don't you talk to it briefly, Bill?
Give me a second then.
Yeah.
Fire things up.
And then I think you could share it with us. But why don't you talk to it?
So to put this together, I solicited all the, give me a second. All the historical financials that we have, they're submitted by New England Golf to the town, Mark Herbert. He gave me the annual financials. I've gone back to John and Bill from New England Golf for a lot of other stuff, like historic rate schedules. And I asked Bill for some just general forecasting ideas. What does he see over the next couple of years? We've had a lot of inflation in the last year. Does he expect that to continue into this coming year? Surprisingly, no, not so much. He thought there might be a little bit, so I built a little bit into my model. He also thinks that we'll get up to 26,000 some odd rounds per year, not immediately. He expects a little bit of a dip this coming year. So 26 or so thousand rounds in 2025.
Would you remind us how many rounds we had last year?
Yeah, we had 22.4 in 2022. So I show a little bit of a dip there. I take it off by 1% next year for this year, then up 9 in 2024, up another 9% to get to that 26,000 figure. Greens fees were holding constant this year. That's going up $1 next year and $1 after that, according to the model. Cart rentals, food and beverage, pro shop sales. I have that tracking percentage wise the same as the increase in rounds, figuring that saying people come and they spend a little money. Same thing with the expenses. I have the Federal Reserve mastering the inflation problem in 2023 and getting us back down to an annual rate of 2%, because you have to start somewhere. So I have the inflation assumption of 2% for 2023, another 1% in 24, another 2% in 25. That comports with the information that I got from Bill about his general sense. Doing all that, it shows that we're going to continue to throw off money for the town. It looks like the payments that will pull in 2023 will be roughly 77,000 as opposed to 76 this past year, up to 92.8 in 2024, capping off at 110 in 2025. So what's more interesting to me is the cumulative effect on the earnings. We came into 2022 with roughly 76 grand. We added another 76 to that, takes us to 152. By the end of 2025, if all this magically holds together, we will have thrown off roughly $432,000 that is being returned to the town via the management agreement. The agreement is good for, it's another 3 years, but I have all of that there. Other key things that I learned from Bill, the cart lease is steady through 2028. He sees an increase in maintenance costs in 2024, assuming we have irrigation and we've got to pay for the water. And again, an increase in green fees by $1 next year, $1 a year. That I would certainly advocate go nuts and bumping them by $2, or maybe even $3, just just to help out with the rest of this.
I think that has to be influenced by competitive survey of other non-homes in the neighborhood.
Sure, that's just my general sense. So, it's easy to poke holes and something like this, let's start it. And we can play with this as we go forward. I have not distributed this. I guess I won't, Jim. Hey, Jim, I guess I won't distribute this. I'll just talk to it from time to time, and that gets us out of the problem with open meeting law and also the hassle projecting it. Does that sound right to you? Approaching the microphone as if to say, well, not so much.
We can pull up a chair for you. Jim.
No. I'm trying to put out a fire on another problem with the town right now. All right, two different issues. If your concern is that being able to display it and show it to the public, you're not required to do that under the open law at all. There's no requirement to do that whatsoever. However, because it's a document that is referred to at the meeting by name and used at the meeting and is physically present on the machine, it's an item that will be shared when you submit your minutes and such like that. But there's a lot of people have this misconception that everything has to be posted, it has to be public. No, it's just, this is a meeting for the three of you to discuss the business of the town, period. You don't have to do the Zoom stuff, you don't do any of this stuff. No, we make it. There's a misconception that we've made this incredibly overly complex for volunteers, and it doesn't have to be.
Okay,
Okay,
so I should send a copy of this to Ira, so Ira could attach it
We'll
to.
send it in with the minutes.
perfect. Yep.
So I think you can share it with the entire committee, and Ira will post it as part of minutes.
And the minutes don't get posted until fundamentally we approve them,
Exactly.
so there's always
45 days. Yeah.
that bump.
So from time to time, we'll ask you to just share that with all of us, and then that's a very helpful summary.
Can I suggest one item of information to perhaps build into the model? And it requires some input from John, basically, but in that period of time that you're looking at, we hope to do irrigation. And I'm guessing that work has to take place during the season. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm wrong, but
Irrigation work?
yeah,
Irrigation work is usually doing your off-season.
Okay.
It would be late in the year to beginning of the
then
year.
that kills my concern. I was going to suggest building in a dip in fees during the course of that work.
So Bill references doing that work. He's aware of potential disruptions like that. So
Okay,
he's been very good about getting back to me and high quality information and opinions and the history. I think we got the whole thing,
great.
but it's still.
Yeah. No, thank you. That was the only wrinkle that occurred to me.
So that's an incredibly helpful summary, Bill, so thank you. So if you could share that document with us, that'd be great. I'm sure there'll be updates in the future. I guess I have a question and I don't know the answer. So who makes the decision about increasing greens fees? Is that a management company decision or is it a town decision? Who makes that choice?
They're recommended, and then. Actually, I got a thing, it's different, I guess you can see the contract. I don't exactly remember the wording of the contract. Who's responsible for the rates? I believe they're all, if their rate increase goes up, it has to be, actually, no, it doesn't have to get to, it's done by the management company.
Just the management. Yes.
But I have to think about all the, I get multiple contracts.
Right.
So John, the fact that Bill is suggesting a $1 increase, is that based on market research? I mean, you guys know the market. Is this what the market will bear?
As you know, Bill Harrison knows numbers. He's a very sharp guy for numbers wise. Yeah, and the thing is that from a golfer's perspective, you have to have the conditions to warrant the increase. And our policy was always, whenever there's an irrigation project going to happen, they can see opportunity to increase pricing because people see it. They don't mind it. And we like to stay, and we get to pricing. Also, we do market surveys, taking a look around competitive courses that are in our gym. It's not going to be Stoic, it's different, it's a different kind of golf. And we try to stay competitive with the local ones around this area. And And then you look at what they have to offer as far as automatic irrigation, they have it, it's always green. So, you know, that's the one hurdle that we have to approach, get to that point, and now that brings us up a little bit more to that type of course that we can present.
I can't resist asking this. How much of a bump do you think we get at after we improve our signage?
Well,
It's gonna be relative.
so I'm sure we'll talk often about this, but
Oh, yeah.
it strikes me, in my opinion anyways, is that, well, first of all, it's a wonderful course, right? And it's amazing that it's doing as well as it is and that it's throwing off this kind of cash, right? So from a town point of view, what a win, like what an immense win. It seems like we want to, this is my opinion, maximize course usage, right? I mean, we're not here to maximize revenue as much as maximizing the usage of the course. We want the community to use the course. So maybe that's like a factor in setting greens fees, right? Why raise the rates if like the course isn't being used to its maximum? So, but I'm sure, you know, lots of people will have opinions about this, but I'd hate to raise fees and then prevent some people, you know, town, you know, residents from coming out to play. So.
I haven't heard anything. I mean, as far as what I hear from the public, everybody appreciates the niche we're in. They appreciate the fact that we don't have high rates. They can come in and conveniently go out, get out to play
Right,
and not cost an arm or leg.
right.
And that's what you have to do. That's part of marketing too. I know some courses that have that connotation for them that, you know, man, you know, like, can't believe I pay this much and they only come back there once in a while.
Right,
You know, we want to make sure people have a destination in this local area. That's our market stays in the local area. We're not a destination courses. Of course, a lot of courses are not like that. It's more a convenience course. So that's what, you know, we look to provide that convenience and that ability to go out. And, you know, sometimes, you know, we've charged $10 a round. Some people still don't come up certain times. You know, there was reasons for it, during construction, people didn't come up. You know, I can understand that, but still, the price didn't matter. It wasn't, hey, it's not a 9-hole golf course, it's not green all the time, it's always, it's not this, not that. Once we get that irrigation system in, now you can actually readjust your marketing, and you can, you know, Bill can readjust what he can foresee. Bill Harrison can do too.
Yeah.
He'll see what that brings, but what it does bring is, you know, from, you know, just the management part of it, you're up to date to, you know, get into the present century. Not being archaic and having a system that is not very attractive to anyone, including myself.
I'd
okay,
like to two things if I may. And the first is, I forgot to mention this. I'm sharing this with Bill so that we are in lockstep in the way we're looking at this going forward. He notices something big changing. He'll let me know. I can update this so that we can stay updated. Second thing is, we're talking about making it accessible. I like where you're going with it, Tony, and we're cost conscious. Can we fund a couple of seasons passes and have them available through the senior center? You know, and,
I think that's a really interesting idea. I don't know, are
We
there
do the
people?
same thing through the library. The library buys memberships to
Huh.
Museum of Fine Arts and Museum of Science, stuff like that. And the community is able to come in and borrow those passes and go to the museums. You do that for the golf course.
I think that's a really interesting idea. I don't know if other towns do this, but we want residents of Southborough to play. So,
But you just gotta watch out for, because you do come under certain rules, and regulations with the state of Massachusetts. In which case, if you're providing this, or someone's buying this, and you're a state employee, you have to watch out as conflict of interest.
sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's not, what an
Well,
It's a condition of employment.
No, it will be, John.
But if it's a town, if the library buys them, it gives them away. Okay, it's not, I'm right, it was the other way around.
John, let me do
Not housing.
a better job on that. The town would buy them, we work something out with you guys, with the business. Get a couple of passes, have them available at the senior center for Southborough residents only, or I don't know, members or people who are involved at the senior center. Town employees would be ineligible, And we could put restrictions on it. It'll only be daylight hours, you know, Monday through Thursday or whatever, stuff like that.
Maybe something you consider.
We can figure that out.
I think we should explore that and just see what the reaction would be, right? You know, a one season, you know, set of passes, you know, at the senior center, or I don't know, that's, and maybe that's something to brainstorm with Bill or and the management company a little bit. Has this been done before? You know, what might the implications be, right? There might be some unforeseen implication here that we're not anticipating here. I don't know, Bill, are you're talking to Bill? The Bills are talking about things. Are you willing to explore that with Bill Harrison?
Sure. Well, or you, John.
Right, he'll go through Bill Harris. Like I said, he's a numbers guy. He knows the ramifications probably better off than I do. So I would say everything should go through him.
It's easy enough to figure out the maximum potential effect on your revenue for the year. So we have.
And I don't know.
Also, the way one of you phrased it initially was we would buy a couple of passes, so we could do that out of our capabilities and not affect revenue at all.
Yeah, it's buy passes or just allocate 2 passes, right? It could just be allocate 2 passes, then, you know, and we see how often they get used the first year.
Yeah, I'll pick this up with Bill.
Yeah.
Brainstorm on it.
Yeah,
Best thing, he'll give you a lot of information.
And my practice, when I communicate with him, I always copy you. That's appropriate, isn't it?
Yes, yes, and most of it, anything that has to do with the, you know, administration goes to Bill Harrison. It's his company. Okay, and that's it. Anything day to day, it's usually it will filter down to me.
and I think, and as we've talked about here, that's just along the lines of encouraging the community to use this wonderful asset.
It's marketing, it's
Yeah,
outreach, it's
yeah.
returning, you know, if we
Yeah.
end up paying for them, it's returning something to the
That's
community.
right. I
It's
mean,
funds in the
that-
first place.
That just feels like in many dimensions, the right thing to do. Nick, did you have a comment there? It looked like you were, no,
No comment.
okay,
I like the idea.
yeah. Any other discussion around financial model? We have a special guest then today that here to give us a briefing on open meeting laws. So, you know, we'll take 10 or 15 minutes here and be briefed.
Coming to take chair this time?
No, sorry.
Thank you for your time.
I'm glad to. I'm gonna save you about 2 days worth of training.
Excellent.
And I title this, is how to volunteer instead of trouble. Because, and my second comment is that I didn't write these things. I think that the people that wrote these should be put on an island. And, I don't go fix the crazy stuff. I'm gonna state comments and then I'm gonna give you a practical consideration of it, okay? All these open meeting, public records and conflict of interest laws all intersect, and they're all basically what I call sunshine laws. The intent is to have the government business done in the public, so the public has a right to observe it, okay? That's a critical distinction. A lot of people think that the public has to participate in everything. No, that's not what it's intended to be. That the public can sit in the audience and watch as you do your business, that you're not doing this in some smoke-filled room, handing money and, you know, that kind of good stuff, right? It's up to a board whether they decide to allow public comment, how you do it, when you do it, entirely up to you. That's not a requirement of any law, okay? Throw that out to you. There are 10 very specific reasons why you could hold a meeting in executive session. I'm not going to get into them. I don't think they would be applying, talking to you guys whatsoever. If that ever were to come up when you talk about strategy for negotiating a contract, that's one of them, and I'll cover that down the road. It's not worth getting into. These laws, the open meeting law and so forth, talks about a deliberation by a public body. When we think of the word deliberation, we think of, you know, Perry Mason and lawyers and juries, right? That's not what they mean. They use the term deliberation to mean really any kind of a communication. It can be oral, it can be written, it can be email, anything amongst a quorum of the public body, you. What's a public body? Anything more than one person on a committee, okay? On any business that's either in its jurisdiction now or is likely to be. Okay, so your committee is comprised of 5 people, okay? Regardless of how many that you have on the board at the time, your quorum is 3. So any one of you could communicate with any other member individual. Email, have a cup of coffee, whatever you want. and talk about your thoughts on a matter that you're discussing today or next week. Perfectly okay. You could do that individually with each member of the committee. Perfectly okay. What you can't do is go to member one, go to number two, and then go to number three and say, hey, when I was talking to two, XYZ happened. They call that a serial deliberation. Okay, but perfectly straightforward. I remember years ago being at the transfer station, I was on the advisory committee. And I was talking to somebody and somebody come up and said, there's a quorum of the advisory committee here. You can't meet here. I said, we're throwing it out of trash. It's okay. We're able to talk about the Patriots. It's, you know, it's all good. When you do send emails, and you can absolutely send emails back and forth about administrative things, all right? And a lot of people get down a rabbit hole. The simplest, the best explanation I've ever heard from a lady named Lauren Goldberg. She's the managing partner of the largest municipal law firm. I wish I had her as for every college class as a professor, just a superb teacher. She distills complex things down to the most simplistic things. If you need to send emails, texts, or anything, communications outside of a body, if it's administrative in nature, it's perfectly okay. What you want to be careful of is you don't express your belief or opinion on a matter that will come before the board. Simple as that. If you want to say, hey, at the next meeting, I think that we should discuss passes. Terrific, okay? But you can't say passes, but we should limit it to $49 or 2p or something like that. All right? Simple. Don't have your belief or opinion, and you're good to go. In terms of participation, phone call and email, a text, it's all the same. Okay. Now you talked about posting something on the blog. Perfectly okay. It's an announcement for the board. There was a committee in town where there was a lot of disagreement on the issues, and one member launched something on the blog, and it gave an opinion about matters before the blog. It was dysfunctional committee and all kinds of stuff. He knew what he was doing. It was a shot across the bow. And then some of the other members on the other side of the fence then posted. And then the initial member said, oh, time, talk to the clerk. That's probably an meeting law. All right, now, yes, now you have a quorum to discuss. Yeah, you gotta stay away from that. It gets a little messy, but anyway, you guys don't have that problem. So let's talk about a quorum is a simple majority of the members of the board, not the members that are on the board at a particular time, but when it was constituted as 5. All right.
So, yeah, so we're constituted as 5, but we only have 4.
Yep, so your quorum is still 3. Okay. But what triggers the open meeting law? Anytime there's a quorum, 3 of you discussing matters within your jurisdiction. Simple as that. We talked about serial communications. Okay, what happens if your board wants to go before the select board?
Actually, Jim, can I interrupt you at that point? Here's something that could be realistic for this particular committee.
Yep.
The 4 of us get together to play around the golf at the Southborough Golf Club. First time we've gone together around the club, Bill and I have walked it together, but never played together. And in the course of that round of golf, any one of us says, look at that, whatever that is. We ought to do something about that. Is that conducting business with a quorum of us that we have to worry about?
I think one could make the argument that if Bill were to say that, he does it in the sense that that should something we should add to an agenda, as an agenda item. Okay? That's how I would view that. Okay?
Okay, that's the most realistic.
Yep. Yep.
What if
Yep.
I can come up with?
And of course, there's a public perception. There's somebody that's on the other side of the fence, for whatever reason. Maybe they're on the other side of Lattice Palmer and they're, you know, whatever they do.
Literally.
I saw the 4 of them playing, you know, kind of a deal. So, you know, a perception is reality sometimes. Okay. But that's, there actually is something called a site visit, which is allowed. Look, if you wanted to walk the course as a committee to look at irrigation or something like that, that's a posted meeting. You can observe and all kinds of stuff. You're actually technically not supposed to ask questions. And at the end of it, you convene in the clubhouse or someplace to talk about what you saw. Right? Kind of a convoluted item, but that's, you know, there you go. That pops up a lot with like Conservation Commission walks and stuff like that.
So Ira and I have walked the course with John. We looked at the signage and talked as we've gone through.
We were not a quorum.
You didn't have a quorum?
Not a quorum and not technically a site visit.
No, yeah, because you didn't have a quorum. Yep, so it's perfect. Okay, yep. Okay.
It's Joe.
If you, so if you, let's say, when the select board's gonna talk about, you mentioned about having an article, there's gonna be a special fall town meeting probably in October, so I don't know if you'd want to bring it forward for that or whatever. When you attend another board's, another committee's meetings, it's always a wise idea to post an agenda for your board to attend their meeting, in case you have a quorum who's present. Because even though maybe y'all just want to sit and hear what they want to say, so let's say the four of you, the three of you guys were sitting in that room at the selectmen's meeting. And even though it's a packed house, and all of a sudden one of you goes up to ask a question about the budget. Now you have a meeting of the golf committee, even though it's in this other thing. So it's one of these things I tell people, look, sometimes people snipe at just silly stuff. If you post the meeting, it's your, the lawyers would call it a prophylactic move. I call it, you cover your behind move. Just throw it up there and call it a day. That's an easy one. Okay, electronic messaging. If you all have town email accounts, and the town requests that you communicate back and forth via the town email account. However, any method that you communicate over a personal cell phone, a work cell phone, a work email, a Gmail account, it's all potentially a public record. So what I did when I was on advisory is I set up a separate Gmail account before we had town emails account, and anything town stuff, I forwarded that Gmail account and I kept it clean, all right? When I occasionally get a text to my personal cell phone here on a work item, I just forward it across to my town email account and so forth, just to keep it simple. So let's just talk about public record requests and stuff like that. There are a few people around that think that they can ask for everything, including the receipt for that breakfast this morning. All right, I'm curious, by the way, where did you get that? Red Barn?
Red Barn.
Okay,
Yeah.
and is it good?
This was not my selection from Tony's bag of tricks, but it's still good.
All right, I'm curious, okay. So somebody says, we talked about Red Barn, I want to see that receipt. No. You don't know the right, you can ask me my shoe size, it's not your business, it's not okay. It has to be something specifically directly related to the board, okay? And that's just, you just can't, all right? So it's pretty straightforward, it's not as intrusive as people think, but just, it's best just to sort of keep your town stuff separate from your personal stuff, okay? Pretty straightforward.
Stay with that for a second, if I may. What about my communications with the management company? I'm writing to them out using my Southborough email account. Frankly, these financial deliberations will go over Ira's head, so I don't copy the board on that. It's okay for me to have these direct communications using the cell.
Absolutely. And it's on your town account, it's good to go. So if somebody put a public records request in, I want all communications with the management company. They have the email address, then Jay Montijo could do a search off the mail server and grab it from that. Perfect, okay. That's all perfect, okay.
Everything that Bill said is true. It all goes over my head.
What they cannot do is send a public records request, and I want every email from that company to all their suppliers. No, it's not within the realm of town of South. No, it doesn't, no, not at all, okay. All right, so I told you the simple thing is don't express your belief or opinion in an email to a quorum. I wish there was a way for us to remove reply all function from all emails. I think people get into trouble on that, just all kinds of stuff like that. It's just that's the way of the world. I always tell people that before you hit send on the email, I use Gmail for some of my personal stuff, and I really like the unsend feature they came out with a few months ago. I wish I had that from my mouth sometimes, all right? But I always tell people that on a contentious issue, before you hit send on the email, think of how it's going to look on the newspaper or the blog. That's just how it might end up, and you know, and sometimes people get wrapped up over the most minor items that appear to us to be minor, when you just never know what's driving the bus. So that's okay. Covered that. We talked about texts being part of the public record. Notices for meetings, they're required to be posted at least 48 business hours in advance. They come to the clerk's office, we handle the postings. It's required that the topics on the agenda are items that the chair knew or reasonably knew would be discussed, that is 48 hours before the meeting. That's really significant. A lot of people get wrapped up in this they think it's much more restrictive than it really is. Okay. So when the agenda was sent in for this meeting, more than 48 hours in advance, let's say you had three things on it. Okay. If something pops up within after the agenda is sent in, you can send a revised agenda. Perfectly good. Within 48 hours, you can continue to revise it if you choose to. All right. If it's a significant item, I'd recommend you don't do it. But if it's just, hey, we should talk about this at the same time, perfectly okay. People say, no, it's within 48 hours. No, that's not. It's not the way the law is written. It's only items in the initial agenda, what the chair knew more 48 hours in advance. So perfect, okay.
So how broad is any other business that might come before the committee?
There's no reason to have that on an agenda whatsoever, period. None. I don't know why people put that on there. There's no requirement at all to do that. So, by rights, you should be discussing what's on the agenda. And that's it. All right. I think that's actually what the Pandora's box to throw them. So I would recommend knocking that off altogether. So in terms of adding things within the 48-hour windows, if it's a significant item or potential controversial issue, your best, my opinion, is to push that to the next meeting. So the public has the most amount of knowledge that people supporting and opposing could observe and, go from there. So let's just talk about, let's take Bill's comment and segue into the concept of public comment, right? So if we had somebody in the back right now and they said, I'd like to talk to you about this, the personal cars of the public safety building employees that are being damaged by golf balls. Right? Want to bring that up? Okay, great. Or something like that. Certainly a matter that this board has an interest in and input into. It's not on the agenda. Your best course of action if somebody would, if you were to allow public comment, right, and it's entirely up to the chair. Okay, but my suggestion is you use the same policy for separate meetings so that it doesn't appear that you're favoring or disfavoring somebody. Okay, but if you have a policy of allowing public comment at the end of the meeting and somebody brings this topic up and it's something that's unrelated to what's on the agenda, my suggestion to you is you don't want to enter into discussion about an item that was not on the agenda. All right, because maybe somebody favors a 50-foot steel wall to block this stuff. And somebody that would radically oppose, maybe that person's neighbor radically opposes it, they're unaware of that. They didn't have an opportunity to come in and express their point of view. So the wisest course of action that I have seen is to say, all right, thank you, we understand this is your concern. All right, we'll consider that for future agenda and leave it at that. All right, because you open up Pandora's box when you start allowing somebody to influence you, but not somebody on the opposite side of it, not to. So that's an easy way to work. But I think that any material is just asking for trouble. It doesn't add value, in my opinion. All right. Can meetings be held on weekends? Yes, they can. All right. There's only a few days of the year that meetings can't be held. For some reason, the Secretary of State took it upon themselves to define what are certain holidays. I don't know. Maybe there's a whole department to define these things. Okay. But we send notes to tell you when you can't define these things. You can hold them on a weekend. Can you hold a meeting in a private building? Yes, you can. Can you hold it in your home? Yes, you can. As long as you allow the public in and it is ADA accessible. All right. I don't recommend that for a whole bunch of reasons. Can you change the location of the meeting? Yes, they've actually changed their guidance on it. I think they're silly, but that's okay. You could change your location of the meeting up until the time of the meeting. The guidance used to be that you could change it within the same building within 48 hours to room kind of a deal. If you wanted to go to a different building, you had to post a new meeting and they said, no, that doesn't apply anymore. I think that's a really bad idea. For example, I always look to see what's the lowest denominator in terms of accessibility. Let's say somebody doesn't have a vehicle, they have to be delivered by a wheelchair van or something like that. And they want to attend a meeting here. They come here at 7 o'clock or whatever, take the elevator up, only get a note on the door saying it's now at the library and their ride's gone. How do they get over there kind of a deal? So even though you have the legal authority to change buildings, I recommend you don't do it. If you change rooms, like at your senior center or library, something like that, perfectly okay. Just put a notice on the outside of the door, the building, and then put a notice on the door of where the room was located to say, hey, we're now in room 7 or whatever the reason is. Perfectly okay. And that happens with different stuff. All right, can you schedule an emergency meeting within the 48 hours of the window? Well, no, not for your board. It has to be a really unusual item. It cannot be something like we're under a timeline for the contract. If we don't sign it within 48 hours, we're screwed. It has to be something like a natural flood or something like that kind of a deal. Contract issues don't fly. Not going to work.
Let's stay with that for a second, if you would. Sure. So worst case, we learn in the middle of the night is fire at the clubhouse. We all go racing over there.
Sure.
We talk about it. We talk about what we're going to do in the future. Do we have to file minutes or after a meeting like that? Do we have some reporting obligation?
I think it probably would be a good idea to do that because you're talking about potentially committing resources to the town to make a decision like that. I think it probably would be a good idea to do it. Perfectly okay for that. Yeah. Let's hope that doesn't happen, but perfectly okay. Yeah. But with floods and such like that, pipes burst and such, you just don't know. Yeah. Can somebody record a meeting? The answer is yes. provided the chair is notified and the chair announces that there is a recording going on. Massachusetts has a wiretapping statute that both parties have to consent to it, so you're giving notice to the public that, so let's say in a room full of people and one person pulls a recorder, I'm gonna record this, and Mrs. Jones says, well, I disagree. Well, you can leave the room. Mrs. Jones doesn't have a right to shut it down. It's like when you call one of those lines and you hear the beeping in the background. Can you compel attendees to sign in? A lot of boards used to do this. You cannot. You can request people, hey, would you like to get on our mailing list, sign up, and you're good to go. Can you participate remotely? Sure, you can do this. You could also call in by phone, all kinds of other issues like that, to do that. So I'm just trying to give you the Reader's Digest for ethics. You all have to take that lovely ethics test that I have nothing to do with. I would distill all of that down to one brief sentence. If it doesn't involve money going into or out of your pocket, and it doesn't involve a member of your immediate family, your in-laws, things like that, or your business, it doesn't involve you. A lot of people in town think that so-and-so violated the ethics law, and they're talking about ethics in the sense of good judgment, or, you know, they go to dinner with that person, or they go to the same church with them, or something like that. It's like, no, the state ethics law has to do with an activity involving your financial benefit. And I actually read that in an old memo from 20 years ago, somebody, ethics law. If it doesn't involve money going into or out of your pocket of somebody else's, it's irrelevant. So that's the gobbledygook, that's the easy stuff like that. So I hope I demystified a lot of this nonsense, because some of it just really is, it's written for just.
So I mean, it's a catch-all.
It is, and I wish there was a state law for common sense. When I was in the FBI, we always thought, we wish there was a rule that was being a jerk in the nighttime. It would be so much easier just to arrest somebody for that and call it a day. And there ought to be something here, just a good judgment, that just somebody exercised poor judgment, they shouldn't be there, not this other gobbledygook. I think you guys all have my cell phone, it's on my emails. Call me at any time you have a question. I'll be happy to figure this out. Somebody else is probably running the situation. If not, I can call people in Boston, get a quick answer for you. What I have found is when I've made mistakes, the easy thing is just, hey, we made a mistake. This is what we should have done. Here's the fix for it. Can you move on from that? Simple as that. Do you guys have any questions? Oh, one last thing I wanted to share. I saw your planner. This is a very important thing. Is that a public record? It was at this meeting and you referred to it during the meeting.
These are my notes that will go into the minutes.
Well, does that mean the whole book is a public record? It's a public document?
The entire book is dedicated only to golf course committee stuff.
That's good. Okay. The reason I say that is that if you have a private journal, your own notes, if you keep notes here, all right, it is personal to you. It becomes public when you share it with somebody. Okay. So I have my own notes, working documents as I prepare things, and I don't share them. And that's a very wise idea if I do that. But sometimes people say, I saw so-and-so at that meeting and they were writing notes. I want a copy of their notes. No. Did they share them with somebody? No, it's on the public record. Or somebody says, I saw Bill texting at that meeting. I want a copy of that text. Why? Does it relate to the item? Maybe his wife is asking to get milk on the way home. It's not. So sometimes people have these overreaching things and it's just not. So.
Okay, so that was
appreciate
incredibly
that.
helpful. So thank you very much.
Great. And if,
Okay, and we'll be in touch if we have further questions.
great, thanks. Have a good day.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Continuing down the agenda here then.
Downstairs.
No, I'm actually going home, but give me a call. I've got a date with a sink. I gotta replace it.
I need your signature.
While you're doing that, is there any public comment or question? Yes, Dick?
Dick from 294 Taylor Lane, Southwest. Going back to the beginning, you were drinking. Out to the table. I was just going back to the original thing about the hot top.
Yes.
I watched the selectmen meeting 2 weeks ago. And I guess we're approved for it, but it's kind of in the hand of the contractor. As far as he has several towns, and we're one of them, and when he decides he wants to come here, that's when we're gonna get the hot top. They're gonna try to talk to him, I guess, to see if we can get it done.
That'd be great.
Okay, that's all I know on it.
Okay,
Kind
that'd
of
be great.
unofficial, Sam's not here, so,
So that'd be great. So if you learn something more specific, please let us know.
all right, very good.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment or question?
I have one thing I want to add to the minutes.
Yes?
I'd like to recognize the chair's birthday and thank you for his service. And may he have many more years on this committee.
Well, thank you very much.
Write it down,
I
Ira.
second it, and I will note it.
Where's the cake? Oh.
It's in the bag.
There we go.
Come on.
All right, unless there are any other topics, I think we're done.
We are.
Okay, we need a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Ira,
I hate my own movie, but aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Nick?
Aye.
And I'm aye. So we have adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a nice day.
Thank you.